Mr. Speaker, on a warm night in June of 2009, 2 Uyghurs were killed by a Han Chinese mob in Guangdong province. Uyghurs are an ethnic Muslim minority in China, some 12 million people, in a country of 1.4 billion ethnic Han Chinese. These 2 Uyghurs were among the thousands of Uyghurs that had migrated from their home in impoverished Western China to the bustling manufacturing plants in the south. This influx of Uyghurs created ethnic tensions with the Han majority, which exploded that night. In response to these 2 killings, thousands of Uyghurs took to the streets in their home province of Xinjiang, some violently. According to reports, several hundred ethnic Han Chinese were killed. In response, Chinese authorities rounded up thousands of Uyghurs, and unknown numbers were killed. Ethnic tensions continued to mount, and after President Xi came to power in 2012, a series of terrorist attacks by Uyghurs took place across China. Hundreds of ethnic Han Chinese were killed and wounded. One of these attacks took place in Tiananmen Square, the heart of the Chinese state. But, Madam Speaker, none of this justifies what happened next. According to secret documents obtained by the New York Times, in 2014, President Xi ordered the full force of China's authoritarian state to be unleashed on the Uyghurs, as well as Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and other Muslim minorities. He criticized the approach of Western democracies in their war on terrorism for putting, quote, human rights above security, end quote, and instructed authorities to show, quote, absolutely no mercy, end quote. Uyghurs living abroad suddenly lost contact with family in China. Parents disappeared. Neighbors went missing. Children were told their parents had gone to training school, a school they could not leave. These children were told that their behavior would influence the length of time their parents had to stay at school. Les disparus ont été envoyés.
Those who disappeared were sent to hundreds of detention camps built by the Chinese state at the same fast speed at which they built a special COVID-19 hospital in Wuhan last year. A number of people think that over 2 million Chinese Muslims have been sent to these camps, and experts have called this the biggest massive incarceration of an ethnic group since the Holocaust.
First denied the existence of these camps, but when presented with satellite evidence, they said they were educational training centers. Just a year ago, authorities said that everyone had been released from these camps, but the evidence says otherwise. A growing body of evidence based on satellite imagery, survivor testimony, leaked documents, smuggled videos, and many other sources document these atrocities. Madam Speaker, we can no longer ignore this. Documents obtained by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists highlight what is going on in the camps: indoctrination, torture, forced labor, women, men, children imprisoned with no chance of escape. Women are subject to sexual violence, mass sterilizations, and forced abortions. Birth rates for Uyghurs have dropped by 60% in the 3-year period beginning in 2015. Last month, China's embassy in Washington celebrated this in a tweet. And outside the camps, Xinjiang has turned into an open prison for Uyghurs. China has combined the power of an authoritarian state with leading-edge technology to create a surveillance system that is beyond Orwellian. Every single Muslim is tracked. Muslims who don't meet the algorithmic standards are flagged for arrest and detention in camps. Any Uyghur who doesn't follow the direction of authorities is flagged for arrest and detention. No procedural fairness, just the brute force of an authoritarian state. Surveillance cameras are everywhere, but these aren't just cameras. These are the gateway into a vast information gathering system that analyzes every single ethnic Uyghur, their facial bone structures, their expressions, their behavior. Every Uyghur is tracked and classified and rated. Reports indicate that in 2017, the Chinese authorities required every one of the 12 million Uyghurs to go to their local police station to submit biometric data, DNA samples, voice imprints, and facial scans. Uyghurs must have tracking apps on their smartphones. Everything on the phone is tracked. Anything suspicious leads to arrest and detention in the camps. Digital barcodes are found on the front doors of many Uyghur homes, so police can check in through smartphone applications. Uyghurs must swipe identity cards multiple times a day just to go about their daily lives, like shopping or visiting friends. In essence, Uyghurs are not only being persecuted, they are being treated as human guinea pigs for the development of a surveillance technology for China's new model of an authoritarian system of governance. There are an estimated 1,400 technology companies working in Xinjiang province, many working closely with state authorities. One of these companies is Huawei. According to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Huawei is extensively involved in state security projects in Xinjiang. This is the same Huawei this government cannot say no to, and which has partnered with a $5 million grant. Last December, a report from the Center for Global Policy concluded that more than 500,000 Uyghurs are being forced to pick cotton through a coercive state-run system in a region that produces more than a fifth of the world's cotton.
China is eliminating an entire religion and culture. Satellite images show that about 20 religious Muslim sites, including mosques, have been destroyed. Uyghur children are not allowed to learn their language or their culture.
The state is perpetuating a genocide and committing crimes against humanity through a systematic population controls, sexual violence, and mass detentions. These constitute elements of a genocide. These crimes have been documented in numerous reports from think tanks like the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect and from reputable news organizations like the Wall Street Journal, the Associated Press, and the BBC World Service, which just last week was expelled for China for documenting exactly that. 2 consecutive U.S. administrations have concluded a genocide has taken place, as has the Subcommittee on International Human Rights and numerous MPs in this House on both sides of the aisle. Think tanks like the Roel Wallenberg Center for Human Rights and the Friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Center have also come to the same conclusion, as has Irwin Cotler, the former Liberal Minister of Justice. Madam Speaker, the Genocide Convention codifies the crime of genocide. It was the very first human rights treaty adopted by the United Nations in December of 1948. It signified the international community's commitment after the Holocaust to never again allow that event to happen. Canada is a state party to the convention. Article 1 clearly establishes Canada's obligation to prevent genocide, even if it's extraterritorial. Article 4 clearly establishes Canada's obligation to take action to punish genocide, including punishing the perpetrators. These obligations are binding and are the norm of international law. No one pretends that the recognition of a genocide will lead to an immediate stop to a genocide. But the recognition is an essential first step. It is a clarion call to the world for action, just as Canada's stand was on apartheid so many decades ago. Madam Speaker, the evidence is clear. A genocide is taking place. Canada should not evade its responsibility under the Convention simply by avoiding the recognition of a genocide. We must show leadership. We must take a stand. This motion must pass.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government House Leader.